Okay, get ready for this one. Today's deep dive is going to be pretty intense.
Yeah, a real-life murder mystery.
Exactly, but remember, we're here to look at what we can learn from it.
Right. Extract those key insights, those crucial pieces of information from the source.
Which today is this article from Investor. The Tragic Murder of Mark Wall, a tale of betrayal, violence, and uncertainty.
A title that definitely sets the stage.
No kidding. So the victim, Mark Wall, was actually a Georgetown law student.
Promising future ahead of him, cut way too short.
And the whole thing went down in a small studio apartment.
Montgomery County, Maryland, to be exact.
Shared by Rahul Gupta and his girlfriend, Taylor Gold.
And that's where the story gets, well, messy.
Because the central question, the mystery at the heart of it all,
Is whether Mark's murder was a crime of passion, a jealous rage,
fueled by a suspected affair.
or something else entirely.
Yeah, the article highlights these conflicting accounts.
So much lack of clarity around what actually happened that night.
So let's start with what we know for sure. Rahul was celebrating his birthday.
With Taylor, his girlfriend, and their friend, Mark.
And it sounds like alcohol played a big role.
Oh, definitely. Clouding everyone's memories. A crucial detail.
And then, in the early hours of October 13th, 2013,
The police get this frantic 911 call.
from Taylor Gold.
And when they get to the apartment,
What do they find?
total chaos. The place is a wreck, blood everywhere, and Mark Wall.
Dead.
Yeah, multiple stab wounds.
Oh my God.
Rahul's there too, covered in blood, and he immediately confesses to the murder.
Right there on the spot.
Yep. Taylor's there as well, in shock, dazed, also covered in blood.
Talk about a complicated crime scene. You've got a confession, two potential witnesses, and everyone's intoxicated.
Yeah, that's where the fog of memory becomes a major factor.
Because you can't really trust what anyone's saying, right?
Exactly. Rahul's confession, while it seems straightforward at first,
Nice.
is quickly called into question.
Because of how drunk he was.
So who takes the lead on trying to untangle this mess? Detective Paula Hamill steps in to handle the interrogation.
Must have been a tough case to crack.
Absolutely. She's immediately up against these inconsistent stories.
From both Rahul and Taylor.
And their memories are all over the place.
What did Taylor say when Detective Hamill asked if she killed Mark?
Her answer is chilling, to say the least.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
She says, and I quote, "I don't think so."
Wow. That's not a denial.
Not at all. Incredibly unsettling, especially given the circumstances.
So what about Rahul? Did he stick to his confession?
As he sobers up, he completely recants it.
He takes it back.
Says he doesn't remember a thing from that night.
Doesn't remember anything after such a brutal attack in a small studio apartment.
That's what makes this case so fascinating.
And incredibly frustrating, I bet, for the investigators.
You've got a victim, a chaotic crime scene, a confession that's been withdrawn, and two witnesses with shaky memories.
Where do you even begin to look for the truth?
Well, that's what we're going to explore next. We'll delve into the evidence the investigators uncover, the inconsistencies they find.
And how they try to make sense of this incredibly complex case.
A case that forces us to ask some tough questions about memory, perception, and the limits of the legal system.
Okay, so we've set the scene, but the real deep dive starts now. Stay with us.
All right, so we're trying to solve this puzzle.
Yeah, tons of missing pieces.
Exactly. With Detective Hamill, how does she approach a case like this?
Honestly, I'd be totally lost.
It's overwhelming, for sure. The first step, naturally, is to gather all the physical evidence.
Okay, standard procedure.
Right, starting with the murder weapon, a knife found at the scene.
Fingerprints?
Unfortunately, no clear prints that could link it to either Rahul or Taylor.
Ugh, so no easy answers there.
Nope. What about other forensic evidence? Maybe something more conclusive?
Did they find anything?
Well, there was some DNA under Mark's fingernails.
A sign of a struggle.
Exactly, but again, inconclusive.
How so?
The DNA could have come from either Rahul or Taylor.
So still no clear suspect.
Right, and of course they ran toxicology reports.
Confirming what? That they were all drinking.
Exactly, high blood alcohol levels across the board.
As we talked about before, that makes everyone's memories even less reliable.
It really does. So the physical evidence helps, but doesn't solve the case.
So, back to Rahul and Taylor's statements.
Yes, but now the investigators dig deeper, looking for those little inconsistencies.
Trying to catch them in a lie.
Or uncover some hidden motive. They really scrutinize Rahul's initial confession.
The one he later recanted.
Exactly. Just to refresh our memories, what did he initially say?
He claimed he saw Taylor and Mark together, leading to a jealous rage.
And then, of course, he says he can't remember anything.
which almost makes him seem more suspicious.
It does, right. Is he covering for himself? Protecting Taylor? Or did he truly black out?
It's mind-boggling.
And then there's Taylor. She completely denied any romantic involvement with Mark.
Just friends, huh?
That's her story, but her answers were vague, almost evasive.
Avoiding the truth.
Potentially. And she also claimed to have memory gaps.
About the stabbing.
About many key details of that evening, yes.
I mean, in such a small apartment, wouldn't she have seen something?
You would think so, but that's the crux of this case.
Rahul and Taylor's stories are so unclear, how do you even know where to begin?
It's like chasing shadows. So, with the physical evidence inconclusive and the testimonies shaky,
What could the investigators possibly do next?
they had to think outside the box, shift their focus away from just that one night.
To what? Like their past?
In a way, yes. They started looking into the days and weeks leading up to the murder.
For clues? For a connection?
Exactly. And this is where the investigation takes an interesting turn. They go digital.
Digital, what do you mean?
Phone records, text messages, emails, that sort of thing.
Ah, looking for digital footprints.
Precisely, trying to find anything that could corroborate or contradict their stories.
So was there any sign of an affair between Taylor and Mark?
That was one of the big questions. They were also looking for any threats between Rahul and Mark,
Any indication of a motive?
any underlying tension that might have led to violence.
So did they find anything significant in those digital records?
There were some interesting pieces of information, but whether it's enough to point to a suspect,
Is still up for debate. I'm hooked. What did they find?
that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. But before we get there,
Yeah,
we've talked a lot about Rahul and Taylor, the investigation, the legal aspects.
right.
But what about Mark's family?
Oh, yeah. We've kind of glossed over the human impact of all this.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in the details and forget that a real person lost their life.
Absolutely. And the article does talk about the impact Mark's death had on his family and friends.
Especially his siblings, I imagine.
Yeah, they've been pretty vocal advocating for justice in his case.
Attending court hearings, that sort of thing.
Right. And speaking out about needing closure, expressing their frustration with the lack of clear answers.
Which is understandable. They lost their brother, and no one's been definitively held accountable.
And they're dealing with these conflicting stories, the uncertainties surrounding his death. It must be incredibly difficult.
It's a reminder that these cases aren't just puzzles to be solved. They involve real people, real emotions.
Well said. It's important to keep that in mind. But going back to the investigation,
Right, what about those digital records? Did they lead anywhere?
they found some things like texts between Rahul and Mark suggesting some tension.
Oh, like arguments or threats?
Not quite that dramatic, but definitely a sense of unease, maybe a disagreement.
But not enough to prove motive or premeditation.
Unfortunately, no. So we still have inconclusive physical evidence, unreliable testimonies, and now this somewhat suggestive digital footprint.
So how did the prosecution even build a case?
Well, despite all the doubt, they decided to charge Rahul Gupta with Mark's murder.
Really? Based on what?
They argued that the circumstantial evidence, combined with that initial confession, was enough.
Enough for a jury to potentially find him guilty.
That was their hope, that a jury would connect the dots, see the bigger picture.
What about Taylor? Did she face any charges?
No, nothing was ever formally brought against her.
It's like she's this ghost in the story. We may never know her true involvement.
That's the haunting part of this case, isn't it? So many unanswered questions.
Did Rahul act alone? Was Taylor somehow involved? Or was it just a horrible accident fueled by alcohol?
We may never know for sure. This case, this deep dive into Mark Wall's murder,
It's shown us how messy memory can be, how perception plays a role.
and how the legal system sometimes can't provide all the answers.
We're left with a sense of ambiguity, a feeling that the truth might be forever out of reach.
And that's a powerful takeaway, isn't it? Even with investigations, trials, we may never get the full story.
It's a reminder to be critical of the information we receive, even from seemingly reliable sources.
Absolutely. Question your assumptions, consider different perspectives, and remember.
The human cost to these tragedies. The families, the friends left behind, searching for answers that may never come.
Their stories are what truly matter in the end. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a journey.
It has. A fascinating and sobering look at a case that reminds us of the complexities of truth, justice, and the lasting impact of a single tragic night.